Okay, hello. I'm here with Alejandra. She is an incredible designer and brand strategist, and we are going to be chatting all about crafting brand differentiators. I had chatted a lot about this on my stories a couple of months ago, and she is an incredible strategist and crafts really intentional brands. So I wanted to chat with her here so that we can help you uncover your brand differentiators. So thank you for joining me. I'm so excited to have you here. I cannot wait to dive into this topic. I know we have a lot to cover here. So let's just dive right in. So let's talk about brand differentiators and if they are crafted or if brands come with their differentiators. So what is your opinion on that topic?
I love that, I feel like this is such a big one because a lot of people think that differentiators come from like they're native to the product sometimes, and that's not necessarily true. I actually think that they can be both. They can come from the product, from the experience, from the service, but it could be something also that it's crafted. And so in the cases that it comes from the product or the experience, I feel like it's always a case of innovation. Like when the brand comes and they just started a new market, maybe, or they're just started a new industry where they have a product that is very unique, then that can be a very strong brand differentiator, but doesn't last long most of the time, because then after a few months or after a few years, a lot of people will come around and they'll be like, oh, we can do that too, and we can do it better. And so then they come out with the same product or service. Then that's when your brand differentiator gets diluted and you're like, oh, okay, well, there he goes. And so I feel like it can come from the product or service, but it's not something that will be long lasting. And then when it's crafted, normally that is something that could be a lot longer, because you are taking into consideration all the things that makes your business unique, including your story, and like your market and what's going to be valuable to your market. And so I feel like that is the way to go for every brand. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's difficult for new business owners to really have super strong differentiators because you haven't talked to enough potential clients yet. You just haven't been in business long enough to kind of like get your footing and figure it out with your offer suite. And so I mean, it took me like 7 years to really establish, like over time, I continued to uncover what does artful branding mean? What are my differentiators? Who is my client? And just like establish stronger differentiators every year I was in business. But I think the strongest ones are definitely like that hybrid of uncovering and like kind of crafting over time. But you do have to have that something like to stay in business and to continue to be in business. You have to have somewhat of a differentiator for people to like perceive you as different. And that's really the point of, crafting these is so that we can message them better to our ideal client. And so mine was always being an artist was like what clients perceived and valued as different and why I was able to like charge that premium because it wasn't easily replicated by other people. Like really no one can illustrate like me. And so that's something to double down on. So when I work with clients, we're really trying to like uncover what that is. And it can really sometimes be a challenge to do that deep digging work. And so this is really hard work. Like that's why even as brand strategists, we're like, sometimes this can be where we really get stumped and we have to like go back to the drawing board and just like really dig deeper into the client's story to make sure that we craft an intentional brand that is going to set them apart because that's the point of branding.
Yeah.
So
And I
yeah.
feel like for personal brands, like brands are based on like a personality, that can come a lot easier because you can tie it to your story. If and that's the tricky part too sometimes, because if you have a product or service attached to it, sometimes you don't want to use your story as part of your differential. Like
Right.
maybe sometimes that's not something that you identified, or like that you're like, oh, my identity is like super tied to this, but I don't want to bring it in. And I feel like that could be really tricky because that's when you're like, okay, well, if you can't use that, then we need to craft something that is true, that you can verify, but at the same time that makes you stand out in the eyes of your buyer persona, of your clients, or your ideal clients. So what do you think are like solid brand differentiators and what are like iffy ones?
Okay, so I will start with the iffy ones. I hear a lot because when I'm working through brand strategy, I just ask the client, like, do you have a differentiator? And so let me come up with a random one. This is not from anyone. So I oftentimes hear, like, I am an elopement photographer out of Utah for adventurous couples. That is not at all a brand differentiator.
Maybe there's a bunch of elopement photographers.
Yes, like I could show up tomorrow and say I am too. Like I do that too. And I could be a brand new business owner. That is not nearly specific enough. And actually, like, it's just not a brand differentiator at all. That's literally what you do for a living. And
Right.
we have to be so much more specific than that. A differentiator that I loved that I heard recently was from a team of social media managers, and they fly out to you and they create your content and they batch it quarterly. So they'll come out to your studio and they'll take video, they'll do a photo shoot with you, and then they will go back to their, home base and create your content for the next quarter. And let's say that they niche down and they do this just specifically for interior designers. They're flying out to their project, they're capturing the install, they're capturing reels, and then they're scheduling out that content. That is truly something I have not heard of before. And it is going to be really tough for people to replicate that just because, like, you're serving that unique. Yeah, the logistics of it, the team, like copywriter, the photographer, the fact that they're flying out to you, like that's not easy to do. And then the fact that they're just delivering so much value to these clients in a specific industry, like we're just niching down even further. I think that is just such a strong differentiator, and they may have to innovate in the future. Someone else may come out with this because when people see you have success with your differentiator, it's not if you're going to be replicated, it's when.
You will. Yeah.
You will. And I think that's the beauty though of being an entrepreneur and being a creative. Like I get a little annoyed when people are just focused so hard on being copied. Like it is, yeah, it's not fun. But the reason we're entrepreneurs is because we have that spirit of like continuing to innovate and continuing to create. So you just always have to be like looking to take it further, to take it one step further. And that really excites me as a creative, knowing that like it's never stagnant. It's never like one answer to success. I just get really like fired up over the idea that I like next year I may need to come out with a new offer, or I may need to tweak this offer even further to continue to stand out in my ideal client's mind.
I think that's a frame of mind like that people need to like really work on, because I feel like they think of branding as this like one-time thing that I do and then I'm done with it, or they do brand strategy and the exact same thing. What I don't understand is that what the strategy that you craft at the beginning is based on the market that you're living at the moment. That market changes constantly. So if the market changes and then you stop standing out, then you got to do something about it, right? Like it's like if you're living in this house and you renovate it, and then after a year something starts falling apart or not working, like you got to fix it. You can just let it be. You're not going to have a house that it's like put together. So it's the exact same thing as with branding. Like you have to constantly be looking at your market and your industry and realizing like, okay, am I still standing out? Are these the things that still people know me for? Like have I created a reputation about this? Like how can I keep innovative for people to pay attention? Because the market, the platforms, the tools that we use are constantly changing.
Sure. And buyers keep getting like smarter and smarter. Things that I would, used to do, they don't work anymore. You have to do things different, and you have to create like those kind of offer suites and stacks. Like now I mix and match my packages. I never used to do that, but buyers are looking for different ways to work with designers. And I'm sure like on the flip side of it, like photographers packages, you can't do what you have always done. And people are sick of seeing the same thing over and over again. We want new, fresh, and different. We just get bored when we're seeing the same packages, the same offerings, the same mini sessions over and over again. Like that's just not going to cut it in this day and age in the creative world.
True.
Okay, let's
Some
get
of the there's some differentiators I see too quite often. Well, they call the differentiators, they're not really, but I feel like it's important to kind of call them out. I love when they say we have a great quality product. I'm like, that's your standard. Every
yeah,
product
the
you put
bar
out
is
there
on the
to be
ground.
good quality. Yeah, right. Or this one is also the best. We have a great customer experience.
Yeah.
Like,
What is that like? Yeah, so this is the problem with that. Like it has to really come from your client saying that. It can't just come from you being like, we are different. Like it really has to be in their minds and coming from their idea of like, oh yeah, this is really different. I'm going to tell all of my friends, I'm going to refer them because it was a unique experience. You can't just say, this is our differentiator, and then no one like even values that. And I see this a lot with clients trying to craft really special, unique offers that are exciting to them, but they have done no market research. They haven't interviewed any clients. They haven't done any like case study groups or whatever to really make sure that it's wanted or needed. They spend all this time in development in creating either this a really expensive product or a service offering, and no one books it because no one actually wanted that. It wasn't a problem that they were solving. And so that can kill your business too, because you're spending all this time in development and to not have any sales because you just came up with something that you were passionate about, that will not work well for you in business.
yeah, yeah. So what are some issues? Have you seen, I know that we talked about how like people, when they see a brand differentiator that works really well, people tend to like look and copy some of these things. So I know that there's some issues, tied with that. So what are some of the issues that you have seen with that?
With copying other people.
Other people's brand differentiators, yeah.
So you look like, a cheap
Yeah.
replicator, basically. And I mean, that you've struck gold with your differentiator when people start trying to replicate that. So like, bravo to the original business owner. You have made it, and now people are trying to replicate that. But what I've seen is our intention usually isn't to replicate that business owner's differentiator. We're trying to replicate their success. So I often hear from brands that come to me, I want a brand like so-and-so, like insert any industry leader's name here. And what they're looking for is those big, huge budget clients. They're looking to shoot luxury wedding weekends in Italy. They're looking for the press features that industry leader has. And they're looking to be a respected creative in their industry. And these are all things that are great to achieve, right? Like, I want to look at these goals for you. If those are your goals, we can craft a brand that is unique to you to help you meet your goals, but you're never going to meet those goals by trying to replicate another person's brand, because people can see right through it. An inauthentic brand doesn't get you anywhere. But I think one of the issues that we come up with in the creative industry is we're constantly looking inwards to our own industries and creating our offer suites based off of what other people are already doing. Like you and I, we essentially do the same thing. We're both brand strategists. Our offer suites are different because I just saw yours yesterday, and we maybe have one offer that overlaps, but I think that is so great that we have both leaned into kind of our strengths and what our client values. And we know that because I know your ideal client really well. And we have crafted offers that really step in to solve a problem for them, instead of just looking at all the brand designers, what everyone else is doing, and having exactly the same packages named exactly the same thing as everyone else.
I also think that like the market that you are, like the situation, the environment, the timing has a lot of like factors when we're talking about success of a brand. So if you're copying somebody else's brand differentiator at a different time, it might still not work for you. Like, because first of all, those brand differentiators are affected by what was going on at the market at the time. So if you were the first one to come up with a new experience, a new service, and then you're trying to replicate that service like 3 years after that, when there's probably another 15 other services that are doing the same thing, then obviously it's not going to work for you because you're not the innovator of that service. And so I feel like it's important. It's not just like horrible, because you will create a brand reputation of as like somebody that copies somebody, so it will affect your reputation as well. But it also is ineffective. Like it won't work for you because there's a lot of factors that need to be aligned for that specific success. So you can't just copy. You can be inspired by somebody's goals, but don't copy their recipe, because the environment is completely different.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Why is crafting a brand differentiator essential for a successful creative business or any business?
I think it is because in a market that it's only growing to be crowded and crowded, like there's so many other brands out there, you have to find ways to make your brand stand out. You have to find ways to call out to the people that you want to attract. And I feel like when you craft a brand differentiator that is based on what it's valuable in your client's eyes, that it's hard to replicate, that is unique to you, that it's like true and authentic to who you are, your people are going to notice. So I feel like it's a great way to create brand awareness and brand recognition with your ideal audience. Not to mention, I feel like you can like position your brand as a more premium brand, because what makes you unique, it makes you the only option in that market. So people will want to work with you if they feel like you're the only option that offers something that they really want.
Yeah, I totally agree. It just allows you to charge those premium rates, and people aren't going to pay those if they think they can go elsewhere to find that for cheaper.
That's
And
right.
I hear that all the time from wedding industry clients, because that's the niche that I specialize in, is like, I don't want to be price shopped. Well, if that's the case, then we really have to become the go-to in your field. And that's really hard to do as a photographer. I will admit that is one where I feel like you really have to do some deep digging and figure it out, because it's so saturated. But because there are so many options, you have to really uncover what it is your positioning is to make people think that you are going to deliver something better and different. And that's not easy to do, but it is possible through brand strategy.
Yeah.
You and I both hired this out. So I think like, I'm definitely not making light of like, oh, just come up with a better differentiator. Like this is really challenging, and your brand strategists are literally hiring this work out to get outside help, because it is such a difficult task in your business. And so I just think having outside eyes on pulling that information out and kind of seeing what could potentially be a differentiator for you is so, so helpful.
That is such a good tip, because I do feel like think about it, when you're thinking about like your own identity and your own personality, like sometimes, people would say, hey, you're such a good person, or you're such a good friend, and all the things, but it's not like what really makes you a good friend. Like you just are the way that you are. You don't know anything different. But other people that have interactions with you and other friends know what are the things that make you stand out. So I feel like the best way you can search for your brand differentiator is in your testimonials and what your clients are saying about you. Like when you have somebody give you feedback, like really pay attention. What are the things that they're saying? Are they saying you are efficient? Are they saying they love the interactions? Are they saying that they love the experience? And that's like a little hint of like where your brand differentiator could be hiding, because it's a lot about uncovering. Like a lot of the times is there already, and you just gotta have to uncover it. Some other times is not even there. Like, and so and the most likely reason why your clients are coming to you is because of a price point, or because of like how like they've been exposed to your brand, and so they're like, oh, this is easy, I don't have to do a lot of research. Like, so you have to come out with ways to find out the people that are coming to you, but that only want to work with you, rather than people that are coming to you for reasons that are not that. So for example, if it's like a price point, then you really don't you shouldn't care about what they think. But it's like people that are like, oh my God, I've been saving up all this money so I can work with you, or like, I cannot wait, I've been dreaming about working with you for so long. Those are the people that you need to pay attention and be like, okay, why have you been waiting? Why have you been saving up to work with me? And so I feel like, yes, definitely outsource it if you can, because it's really hard to see, like, do that work where you can identify what those are the things that make you different.
Yeah, you're just too close to the business to really be able to see it from like the, you know, the outsider's perspective of pulling those, like you said in the testimonials, there's usually things that you can pull out of each one, but they like kind of pull together. And I love seeing that from clients where it's like, oh, your like customer service, your clients won't stop raving about it. And like, that's something that you can double down on, and we can create an offer kind of around that, or we can create messaging around that. So really honing in on what those things are. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this before the call, but what is the problem with being like, well, my work just speaks for itself. Like the work is the differentiator. Let's talk a little bit about this, because I hear this a lot from potential clients. I really try and get them out of that mindset.
Yeah, I hear a lot of this in the wedding industry as well. Like, videographers, photographers, like they, you know, they put a lot of the heavy work of the marketing on their work. And the problem is that their work can be something, first of all, they only notice what are the different editing styles that, I mean, yes, if it's like different enough, it would stand out. But in their clients' eyes, that difference between work and work, the editing, it's not going to stand out as much as they think, first of all. So the technicalities of the work are not as they don't have enough contrast for their audience. So that's the first thing I do notice. The second thing is they think that their experience is the product. They think that they're product-based businesses, but they're actually service-based businesses. So what they're offering to their clients is not just like the work itself, the deliverables, but the whole experience. And so they forget about the whole experience and they just sell work, 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 work. The problem with that is that somebody, if you don't get along with your client, they're not going to want to hire you no matter how good your work is.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I feel like that is a big problem with using your work only as a brand differentiator.
And then you're like booking clients that aren't like aligned with your values. There's just so many problems with this of saying my work speaks for itself. Now, like the artistry, of course, is a part of the work, yes, but we lose so much point of view. We lose storytelling when we say the work speaks for itself. Like I see a lot of wedding vendors not even writing copy or have any sort of messaging at all, because it's just reposting what the vendors, you know, that they've worked with on weddings are doing. And that's their entire social media strategy, is just reposting when someone posts their work. And I have no idea what was important about that couple and that wedding. Why did they specifically hire you? What were the problems that you solved that day? All I'm seeing is pretty, and pretty is not strong enough to really sell. And so I would love to see more point of view, especially in the industry that I work with, in the marketing. And I also, I'm getting on a rant a little bit here, but I also see this in like mini sessions where it's like mini sessions are open, but I have no idea why, like, why do I need this? What problem are you solving for me? What is different about your mini sessions than the other 50 photographers that have posted about this today that I'm also seeing? Like, I need something really compelling to pull me into your offer. I don't think just posting a schedule of sessions is remotely close to booking out, is going to book out your calendar for you.
That would only, I feel like that would only work if you have done the groundwork of like selling your brand before and people
100%.
already want to work with you, and then you're opening something like that, then people are like, oh yeah, she's booked, so I'll make sure I get it, right? But like,
it only works if you're like a booked out photographer already.
yeah,
But it doesn't,
which requires a lot of work of brand building. Like, it's not just like, oh, my work is so good, I get people. No, like there's a lot of, and that's the problem with social media. It's like we see only the pretty, but we don't see the back end of the business. Like maybe that photographer did a lot of years of networking.
Right.
You know, maybe they've been doing this for 10 years and they have such a huge clientele that they have done the word of mouth for them. And so it's like, just because you see that they're just posting work and nothing else, and that's working for them, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because again, the circumstances are so different. And totally agree with like pretty is not going to be enough, because there's so many talent out there. There's so many photographers that are so good, so many videographers that are so good, and like that can't be a brand differentiator anymore. Like maybe back in the day when the technology was just starting and the first people that started using it started coming out with like new things and like new material, maybe it could have worked back then. But right now, where everybody has access to a really good camera, I think it's not going to cut it.
Yeah. So can we talk a little bit about why we do not differentiate on price in the high-end service provider space?
So if we differentiate as in like I'm the cheapest option or the most valuable, like the best, like money for your buck, whatever, I feel like there's always going to be like, first of all, it's easy to replicate. Like any other business can come up with a better pricing if they find a way to make their costs lower. So it's not something that you can maintain in time. Second of all, the better you get, the harder it's going to be to keep costs low. Like if you want to have a bigger wedding, for example, and you need more people, like you're going to have to increase your prices. And if you have people that are just coming to you because you are cheap, then they're going to leave immediately because they're like, well, you're not cheap anymore. So what you have crafted as your differentiator is not longer it for them. It's no longer a valuable thing for them. So then they will leave. So I feel like that's a big mistake, to craft a brand that is based on like just price only.
Yeah. And then what happens when you're ready to raise those prices? What do people associate with you? They associate you with being the cheapest option. And so now you're left with literally nothing else to support why people should book you, because
there's no growth with that.
Nothing. It's not scalable at all.
No.
So we never recommend clients like differentiating on price. And that's usually not why people are coming to me anyways. They're usually looking to go luxury. So, but if it's really, it can be really tempting when you're first starting out to just go a tiny bit lower than your.
Oh, for sure. Like, 1,999.
Yeah. we've all been there. I'm laughing because I definitely have done this in the past.
Yeah. And the worst thing is that like also the people that look for like the cheapest option, like the value there is not like, don't you want like somebody that comes to you that wants to actually work with you, not just like it's something, I don't know, like it's just, to me it's not even like an alignment of values,
right.
You know, like don't you want like people to recognize your work for what is actually true value is? And if you're just starting out, I feel like starting at a price point that is like low is still not even good for you, because it's like, is that you got to take into consideration so many other things with pricing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely big no.
Yeah, you're gonna burn out so fast, because like with all the clients I work with, we only have a limited number of spots per year. And when you're competing on price, that's typically more of like a volume model, and it just, I don't recommend it, but it's different for product-based businesses, I will say. It's a totally different model, and differentiating on price with product, I think that's for people that specialize in that. That's not me.
Something else that I think we can, like a little tip that we can kind of share with somebody, it's that like, I feel like a lot of people think that when you're crafting a brand differentiator, it has to be something that it's like going to perdure through time. And that's not necessarily true. I feel like you can craft a differentiator like seasonally, right? Like you can do things and keep innovating in your brand like constantly, where people can attach that innovation to like exciting and new, and that could become a brand differential. So like, for example, I see a lot of like brands that do seasonal pushes that I think are a huge way to be able to craft a differentiator. When you come up with like offers that are like specifically like answering to needs that are seasonally only, like you have already innovation, you're doing things differently, you're constantly like being creative about it, those are things that are going to get noticed. So that's like a good way to think about like crafting a differentiator. It doesn't have to be something super long that you're like established a reputation for your brand that it's going to last like forever and ever. Like it doesn't have to be.
So there's a couple of things that make for a really strong brand differentiator that you can kind of just like check and see if yours is solid or if we need to do a little bit more work. And full disclosure, they're kind of always a little bit of a work in progress here. But one of them is it valuable in the eyes of your ideal client? So we touched on this a little bit, but you can't just decide this is valuable to me, so everyone else values it. That's not how it works. It really has to be something that your ideal client is willing to pay real money for. And typically you can solve a problem for them, and that's going to be valuable for your client. So really stepping in, creating a service that is going to make your ideal client's life easier. And how do we figure out what those things are? We have to talk to our ideal client. Get them on the phone, do discovery calls. Even if you're not interested in booking that client, the more people that you can talk to, the better. And that's how we can really solve their issues. True and verifiable. I'm looking at my notes here. True and verifiable. You can't just say like, this is my differentiator, and then no one really experiences that working with you. It has to be something that you can deliver over and over and over again. And as someone who's been in the field for quite a bit, it can be challenging to deliver high level creative work over and over and over and over again. So you have to be sure that you can really make this happen. So it can't be so complex and so crazy that we can only do it one time and never again. Okay,
You get called out too, like if it's untrue and people like say, okay, you've been saying this, like there will be someone that call you out on it, and it will be not a pleasant experience.
No, no, it's not going to be fun for you. So make sure that your marketing is, true, and you actually are going to deliver what you say you're going to deliver, because the creative community, I mean, word gets around fast. It's small. Like
That's
we
right.
definitely want to make sure that we are being truthful in our marketing. Unique to you and hard to replicate. So this one's just obvious. Like the more specific, the harder they are to replicate. We can't just have a business owner show up tomorrow and be able to do the exact same thing you say is your differentiator. That really means it's not a true differentiator. I would love to hear, what are some of your brand's differentiators?
I feel kind of put on the spot about this.
Oh, let's skip it then.
No, I'm good. Okay. I'm just saying, like, because I'm still constantly crafting this. And to me, I'm in kind of this unique position where I feel like the identity that is like super close tied to me is not something that I want to use for my brand.
Yeah.
And so, for example, like something that will be a really good differentiator for me is that I'm from Peru, and that I could do run a strategy in 2 languages. Like I'm I can do Spanish and English. That would be the easiest brand differentiator from my brand. But it's not something that I want to do, actually. A lot of my clients do come from Peru, and a lot of my clients are also in the States, but I have positioned my brand to be English like base, because it's way easier than having to translate everything into languages. And so some of the things that I have leaned into that are not that, which have been extremely hard because they're also a little more easier to replicate than being from Peru, are being a mom entrepreneur, and also the fact that I'm like a risk, like that I migrated from Peru, and that makes me kind of a risk taker. And so I feel like I can like I can understand all the issues that entrepreneurs go through and like the fears that they go through by like doing this, that it feels very, very scary, because I have gone through that so many times. And especially like having something like migrating from one country to another, like that's a big like bold move. So I feel like I can relate with that experience when entrepreneurs start something that they have no idea if it's going to work. So to me, my storytelling, which I'm still kind of crafting and make sure that I'm applying into my marketing, is based on those things. Kind of like navigating, being like not from here, being a mom, and starting a business that I absolutely have no idea if it's going to work out. So
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love just hearing part of your story more too. Of course, I know it because we talk all the time.
Yeah.
So my brand differentiators, I actually just worked on this again this year with a business coach. And the reason I bring that up is because I have hired this out many times, multiple times. So I worked with Morgan Rapp again, and it was really based on messaging and positioning. And I feel like this time I felt like I honed it in. So I've always had the artist background. I actually started my business as an artist. So I'm an illustrator. And that is a lot of the times what people are specifically coming to me for. So I built my whole business around it, renamed my business Artful Brands, and niched it down even further to be just for wedding pros. And this is actually something I wanted to mention before. A lot of times businesses get nervous about niching because they're worried that they're not going to have a big enough pool of clients. And it's quite literally the opposite result of what happened. So once I started niching down and just offering my services to fine art wedding pros and photographers, I was highly referred in that space and in that niche. And it has just brought me better and better clients by saying no to everything else. And my messaging has become a lot more clear because I've been able to really become an expert in their problems. So before I was trying to be like, know a little bit about every industry that I was serving. And now I know the wedding industry so well in the problems that they're facing. So what I had realized a couple of years ago is that I'm really good at client experience and solving some client experience issues that my clients face. So like we have a really beautiful client experience, and I wanted to help my clients with theirs and craft some offers around that. So recently I came out with a new offer, but we've always just helped clients kind of like smooth out that back end and get out of booking like clients in their DMs. Like sometimes I'll set up schedulers for them. So we go above and beyond just the branding work together. We really like in brand strategy, we're going through everything that the client is struggling with and seeing how our work together can really help them solve any pain points that they're experiencing.
You have workflows too, right? Attached to that, which I think is so helpful.
Yeah. So I originally realized this when we worked with Little Lion, Laura. She's a Minneapolis based children's photographer. And at the time she came to me, it was a brand new business. She had an extremely strong differentiator, but she also had a wedding business on the side. And she was like, I'm spending hours upon hours per week in my DMs back and forth with people trying to schedule these sessions. I just don't have time to do that kind of like admin work for this new business. And I wanted to streamline that for her. And so we set up a scheduler for her on Squarespace. And the week that she launched, she just opened up all the offerings and people booked. She went on vacation and she booked out 7 shoots within 48 hours because of that scheduler on her website. And so after that happened, and she was so kind to like share those results with me, because sometimes your brand designer like doesn't know
Yeah, right? I know. They're like, oh, I'm having so much success, but let's just like, keep it to myself.
I had no idea. No, she was so sweet, and she let me know that like it was such a successful launch. And so after that project, I was like, I feel really passionate about my creative work, like having a deeper impact in people's lives versus just creating pretty brands that, feel super aligned. Like I love that part of my job as well. But I really wanted to go one step deeper because I'm like a busy creative as well. You're a busy mom and creative as well. Like we know how much time goes into running these successful creative businesses. And I'm like, it is hard work. And if I can make this easier on my clients, they are going to, refer me, sing my praises even more if we can take our work with them like one step deeper. So I do feel like that is a pretty strong differentiator for me.
I love what you said about like finding the deeper impact. I feel like that is such a good tip as well. Like find like what is that deeper impact on your client that you are making. And if you're not making one, then start making one, like craft one. And that's what probably going to be like a strong differentiator.
I think you can hear my dog singing in the background here. He wanted to be a part of this. Can you not hear that? Okay. Yes, I think like just whatever you want your life to stand for, your work to stand for, I think weaving that into your differentiators makes it just like that much more meaningful, like putting that why into your differentiators. Like sometimes creative business gets really tough and you have to have that at the end of the day. Like once I've, worked really long hours, I can still see the impact that my creative work has in the long run. And that's what keeps me showing up day after day, is just hearing from past clients, like, this is how your work has impacted my life. And I think that I see creatives go out of business at like a record rate kind of after COVID hit. And that makes me really sad. Like I'm just one of those people who wants to see more and more creatives in the field. And like, if we can help people do that through our work, that's, worth doing for sure.
Yeah. Tying out a strong differentiator with your why, I mean, it makes for a very solid differentiator because your why is tied to something that goes way back.
Yeah.
In your in your life. It's not even just like something from you when you start business. Like it's something that is really has been ingrained in who you are. And I feel like if you're able to uncover that and like tie it in with marketing and how you're positioning your brand, you're golden.
Yeah.
I mean, like it will be, and that takes a long time. It takes years. It's not even something like your why is not something you can uncover necessarily with like on a one session or a couple of sessions with brand strategy. So I feel like if you have found it, like use it as much as possible.
Yeah. And remind people like why you do the work that you do, because they will be able to see themselves in your story. And that's kind of what we're looking for, right? Like we're all looking to be seen and we're all looking to like find connection. And it hurts my heart when we don't show up and share that. It does take vulnerability. It is not easy to like show up and speak to the camera. Like all these things that we're talking about are a true challenge, because being seen, it's vulnerable, it's challenging. Like what will they think is something that has held me back in my business for years. And you do have to do work to get over that. But the
people are going to talk all
no matter what. Yes.
No matter what. So like you just have to reframe it as in like, well, what if they think that I am for them rather than like what if they think that I'm not? And so just focus on the people that you are going to be able to make an impression on rather than people that, you're worried about making a negative impression. Like you probably don't even want to work with them anyway. So what is the whole point? Like, what does it matter?
You will repel people with like strong enough positioning. And that's actually what we're looking for. I feel like so many people are so afraid to repel, but I love repelling because I'm like, you did me such a huge favor because we were not aligned. We were not a match. And that's through strong marketing and strong positioning. Like people that don't value like an artist are not my people. Like that's not someone who's going to value the higher ticket price point on my branding package that comes with illustrating. But the people that do, they are like so thrilled to have found exactly what they're looking for. And so it just helps you in the long run, like repel those people that are going to be a nightmare for you anyways.
And that's a mindset thing too. Like you want to make sure that you're not like convincing people to work with you. That's the worst thing you could do. Right. Like a strong differentiator should not convince people to work with you. It should be just like the people want to work with you already. They're just confirming that through your positioning strategy to what do you have made yourself known as. And so I feel like a lot of the times when we do marketing, we think it's a lot about convincing people, but that's not true. It's just attracting the people that already want to work with you. So I feel like that's a good like mindset shift for everyone that is like looking to be seen.
This is so fun. I am so happy that you were able to join me. You're just brilliant. And I always just value your expertise so much. And thank you for sharing.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. I hope this helps everyone like kind of hone in on messaging, because the more that I work on this in my own business and with clients, the more that I can really see like the success that it has brought to my business, the clients that it has brought to my business. So the work is completely worth it although it is really, really challenging and difficult work. And we know that because we do this kind of work with clients every day. So put the work in, do the uncovering, and you will definitely see the value of that long-term for your business.
For sure.